Clearly, we've got a lot that we want to get through here, Ben, but we've got a very special guest who we've got lined up to talk to us as well. Her name is Antonia Mercorella. She is the CEO of the Real Estate of Queensland, and she was. We've had Antonia on the podcast. We've been very lucky to talk to her a number of times in the past, but she was recently quoted as, "It would be unwise for the federal government to seek to eliminate what is essentially a straightforward tax deduction for property investors. Abolishing negative gearing would eliminate a range of economic benefits, fail to tackle housing affordability, and impact everyday Australians the hardest." First of all, welcome back to the Property Couch, Antonia.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Thanks for joining us. We've covered a lot of ground up until this point, Antonia, but you are someone who is very staunchly vocal in supporting what is arguably something that doesn't need to be tinkered with. But is it a good idea to be talking about changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax?
Well, I think you know my position on that. Absolutely not. Surprise answer. And can I just say how refreshing it is to the fact that you've taken us through those facts is so valuable, and I think that's really important. I think there are so many misconceptions about negative gearing, and so that's the first thing I'd say. Thank you for debunking so many of those myths, but absolutely not. We were really disappointed when this news broke, particularly in circumstances where the Federal Housing Minister had given assurances that wasn't on the agenda, and then we find out that Treasury are exploring this issue, and here we are again.
Yeah, so Antonia, as part of that story, obviously as the CEO of the Real Estate Institute of Queensland, what sort of feedback are you getting, and what do you think more broadly are going to be the consequences of something like changes to negative gearing or capital gains exemptions?
Well, I think we can't underestimate the importance of having that advantage that comes with owning an investment property. If I think about the Queensland experience, in our case, 36% of Queenslanders rent their homes. And when we look at the data, what we see is that the vast majority of that supply comes from private, everyday, mum and dad investors. And it's not a term that I like using, but they're the everyday Aussies who live amongst us. And of course, you've just talked about that today. And I think what's really important to understand is the really vital role that these people play in housing our community. And the reality is that what I find really interesting about the way that these people are demonised is that they are playing this imperative role, that we rely on them. And again, we can't simply not be building social housing, not be creating housing. And then so in one instance, we're encouraging people to become investors, but then we're also demonising them and bashing them over their heads for playing that role. So I think there's a real inconsistency there that's incredibly concerning. And when I look again at the Queensland experience, because that's where I live, what we know is that we've got around 45,000 people waiting for social housing in Queensland. And so once upon a time in the 80s, about 5% of all new developments were dedicated to social housing. We know that's not the case anymore. And so again, these investors are actually the people who are providing rental housing for some of the most vulnerable people in our community. And I think that's something that's often overlooked and not understood.
Well, Antonia, when we first had you on the podcast, you coined a term that we've since used a number of times, that you're sick of government seeing property investors as ATM for the states, right? The Victorian example is that's exactly what they've been doing. Yep. So can you talk to your experience of what you're seeing? Are you having conversations with leaders in your role there in advocating? What is their appetite for the frontline experience that you're able to provide versus the politics of negative gearing? And you're also tackling rental reforms and potential rental freezes. So that in Victoria, that's all conspired for investors to lose confidence in this market. But what are you seeing, which is probably a couple of chapters behind, but you're facing similar challenges or headwinds?
Yeah, we've had our fair share of challenges like Victoria, but I will say that Victoria wins on that particular competition. I'm not sure that that's something that we should be pleased about. Look, we've been going through successive years of legislative change here in Queensland, and it's fair to say that if you look at that legislative change, all of it really can be characterised as very much giving tenants greater rights, greater security, and of course, on the flip side, diminishing the rights and decision-making powers of investors. So there's no doubt that that's having an impact. But what I will say is that the most recent one, rent caps, we were staggered when that rumour broke. I will say very pleasingly, we're going into an election at the end of this month. We'll go to the polls, and there was a rumour that rent caps were coming and that the ALP would do that if re-elected. I'm really pleased that both of those leaders in a recent debate have said they won't be doing that. But again, I think what we've got to recognise, and again, I'm always really careful when I talk about this because we try and be fair and balanced. And I don't want to sound hysterical, but again, it's important that we look at this through the lens of the collective consequences. When you've got year after year of legislative change, we of course had that doozy a few years ago, the multi-jurisdictional land tax. Mercifully, that was shelved. But sometimes it's a case of the straw that breaks the camel's back. I think we need to understand that, as you've talked about throughout the podcast, people who make a decision to invest, they're taking a risk. They are making a decision to invest in a property, and often that does come with debt. It comes with risk. It comes with having to comply with a number of statutory requirements, and so there's a lot that's involved, and I think inevitably human beings get to a stage where they call out when they've had enough. And so I think that's what we've got to keep in mind. It's not just the one change in isolation. It's almost death by 1,000 cuts. And eventually I think people get to a stage where they call time and decide that there are other places where they can invest their money that are less onerous and perhaps even just less risky, quite frankly.
That's a beautiful segue into the market dynamics section of part 2 of what we're going to be talking about here today, Antonia. I want to put a practical lens on this, right? Like, one of the great things about Queensland is it does look like it's very livable, got great weather, got great climate. And we're seeing, in terms of the interstate migration, we're seeing you attracting a lot of people coming in from New South Wales. What are you seeing on the ground when you're looking at sort of, when rent is so tight, it obviously restricts that human movement, which obviously then restricts the economic ability for that city to prosper and the area to grow. And you're coming into an Olympics, and you've got a lot of reasons to sort of celebrate that. In terms of the question I'm probably asking here is just around, what is the challenges for the availability of rental accommodation? Because of all those new people who come in, are they buying straight up or are they renting when they first get there? Because if you don't have that stock, they're not going to come, are they?
It's a good question, and it's a real frustration of mine because I think the world is watching Brisbane. We are, I think, the most exciting city in Australia.
Coming of age,
yes. And we have these enormous opportunities ahead of us. You've mentioned the Olympics, but for anyone who's visited Brisbane recently, they'll tell you it's a really exciting place to live. And we've had we've been going through this process of transformation, and there's lots of great stuff that's happening, but our critical challenge is this issue of housing, and it's not exclusive, but we're feeling the pinch, I think, more than other jurisdictions. And so what we know is that we have one of the highest levels of rental population in the nation. We also have the lowest rates of home ownership of any other state in the nation. And you're right, this is the challenge. We want people to come to our city. We want to open up Queensland to the world, but the challenge is finding shelter for those people. And so what we're seeing is that people are staying put longer, and that's both across the rental market and owner-occupiers. So we are seeing that the length of tenancy agreements has extended out. People are afraid to move out of their rental properties because those vacancy rates are still so low. We're also seeing people who are reluctant to sell because there's a real fear around, where will I go after I sell? So this supply problem that we have in the Sunshine State is creating a lot of pain across both of those markets. And what we're also seeing is a return to more people living in households, particularly in the rental market. We're seeing people gravitating back towards tenancy agreements where they are living with a number of other tenants, simply because they can't afford to be a tenant who lives alone, even if that is their personal preference.
The market dynamics at play. Hey, Antonia, that was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, Antonia, as we wrap this up, what if you when we caught up last week in that cafe in Melbourne, you sent me an article, and it was regarding the two generations that are currently leading our country. We've got a Prime Minister in his 60s and we've got a Treasurer in his 40s. You've got an audience with both of those two men right now. What would you say to them to give them the advice from your lived experience, from the coalface, from what you see? What's the message that you would say to them to help them tackle the very thing that they're trying to solve, which is housing affordability, but we're suggesting they're looking at it from the wrong angle? What would you say to them?
Well, I would suggest the exact same thing. It's really important that we are having an informed conversation and we're focusing on the right things. I think universally it's agreed that we need more supply. I find it really frustrating when I wake up every day. There's new news, whether it be from state government perspective or federal government. Everyone's running around trying to find the solution. And I think the focus needs to be on supply. I think when we've got adequate supply, that fixes so many things. I think we've got to be really careful here when we're talking about decisions that politicians make. Let's be honest, and this is irrespective of which party, they're looking for votes. So there's a lot of short-term thinking, and what we need in this country is more courageous decisions. We need to be thinking longer term. We need to be, we have to take the community with us on the journey. And I think that's why a podcast like today is such a valuable way of educating the community about the facts. And we really need to be addressing some of those myths and making more courageous, longer-term decisions that are in the best interests of our community, rather than looking for those short-term fixes that are really geared towards, let's be honest, getting votes and not thinking about the bigger picture. Yeah.
Well said, Antonia. You've always been very, very generous with your time here on the podcast. You are definitely a voice that we should all be listening to. Thank you for the advocacy that you do for everything you do in Queensland and across the country. And thanks for joining us here on the Property Couch.
Thanks for having me.